Welcome aboard, everyone. My name is Brenda Bailey-Hughes. I teach at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University in Bloomington. I am about 2.5 hours south of Fort Wayne and the IU Fort Wayne campus, where we were all supposed to be visiting face-to-face, but this will be a marvelous substitute. I wanted to talk today a little bit about gamifying my course and share with you what I've done there, and give us about 10 minutes at the end to brainstorm some ways we all might use gamifying in our own courses. So here's the background on this for me. I teach a large professional skills course, predominantly asynchronous, online asynchronous, a little bit of synchronous work, but it's a jumbo class, so we never have all of our students together at one time. So of my 350 students, I might have 30 to 40 in a Zoom session like this at a time, but rarely do I have all 350 because in webinars, that's just, you can't be interactive with that many. So synchronous for small groups, like the team leaders as they rotate through their team leadership roles. And our recruiters love this class. It looks at leading virtually. It looks at participating as a great team member. It looks at being an emotionally intelligent communicator. Recruiters love it. Parents love it. Our undergraduate career services loves it. We've had the course peer reviewed and peer reviewers love it. So we know that from a content perspective and a pedagogical perspective, it's a solid course. Yet students aren't that enthralled with this course. Our evals aren't great from the students at the end of the semester, and from both some surveying and some anecdotal information, I realized students simply were not engaging deeply with the content. They might just skip over information altogether. They might take quizzes without ever having even opened the documents associated with those quizzes. So there was just this really low engagement. And at first I thought, man, these students just have such short attention spans. You know, that's the issue, short attention spans. But then I would be chatting with them, and, you know, they've got black bags under their eyes, and I'm like, you look really tired. What's going on with you? And the student would say, oh, I stayed up all night playing D&D. Okay. Or I watched them back when we still could go to football games and we were all out on the fields for tailgates. They would play, what's that beanbag game? Help me, cornhole. They would play cornhole all afternoon of a game. That is the most mind-numbing game I can imagine. And yet there they are sticking with it all afternoon. Or their tenacity to watch Survivor for hours on end, days on end, weeks on end, another mind-numbing experience for me. So it's not attention span. It was attention span to my content. And I thought, okay, if I want to capture some of that attention, if I want to capture some of that engagement, maybe what I need to do is gamify the course. However, I'm not a gamer myself. I have no programming background whatsoever. And with a class of 350, I was absolutely committed to staying within my own course management system. I didn't want to have to manage all of those students in external platforms. So it had to happen within the course management system. And so what could that look like? And so the three elements of gaming that I experimented with within the course management system were thematic imagery and language, scoreboarding or token grading, and self-directed options, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today. So imagery and language. I picked Survivor. I first piloted this gaming concept in the summer of 2019, so last summer. Survivor was still really hot. This summer, it would probably need to be like Tiger King or something if I were going to do a thematic imagery that would capture students' attention. But simply giving, using some of the imagery and the icons from different games helped create this thematic presence within the course. And things like in Survivor, there's this series of challenges called fire making challenges, where two competitors have to build a fire, and whoever's fire gets high enough and hot enough to burn this string across the top first, that's the winner of the challenge. So anytime that I had something where there was sort of an objective visible win to it, I would turn it into a fire making challenge, and I would pit team against team and have them do whatever learning activity I normally would have done anyway, but I turned it into a competition. I called it a fire making challenge, and oh my goodness, they just went crazy, and we're fighting like cats and dogs to get these kinds of things done. In terms of language, I also changed from calling my modules or my lessons within my Canvas. Canvas is our course management system, but within Canvas, I started calling lessons challenges. And until you finished challenge 1, you couldn't level up to challenge 2. Now, all I'm doing is changing lessons to challenge and using the prerequisite settings within your Canvas manager, your course management system, which a lot of us have been doing for years. I just changed the language to give it that gaming feel for the students. Again, more imagery when they were successfully through, and so for my course, a lot of their levels, they had to beat the level by getting at least an 80 or an 85% on a quiz within that section, or a certain grade on an activity. And then, woohoo, you leveled up. And again, I dropped in more images of winners in the Survivor game since I was playing on that theme. So let me give you some feedback from students about the imagery and thematic component. There were lovers and there were haters, as you might imagine. Lovers said things like this: the game was fun and kept me intrigued. Another one said, I love Survivor, so this is fun. By the way, the students didn't have to know Survivor to be able to do anything in the class. I have never sat through an entire episode of Survivor. I've watched little clips online. My daughter is a faithful fan, and I asked her to explain it to me and give me some of the language. I don't even know Survivor. So they didn't have to know it, but I think they liked it a lot better if they were Survivor fans. So you might try to choose a game or a television program or something that is broadly enough, popular enough that students are really going to dig it. The haters said it was kitschy and distracting. I would rather have just gotten to the point. So you need to know that. And then the other haters, and boy, this was a hard lesson learned for me, were the absolute Survivor purists. So sometimes I mixed metaphors. For example, when I talked about leveling up, you don't level up in Survivor. You get kicked off the island or you get to stay on the island. So when I said level up, they freaked out. They're like, you don't know the game. It totally shot my credibility because they somehow thought I was a Survivor expert if I was teaching a gamified class that used Survivor theme. Or one time, instead of calling it the fire making challenge, I called it a fire building challenge. The Survivor purists just went crazy about that. So there you go. Yeah, so some people are thinking Game of Thrones and Apprentice. Yes, absolutely. Love it. Avatar is a huge resurgence. So you know what's popular among our students. So that was the first gamifying element, was just imagery and language. Very simple, low stakes effort on my part. The next one that I wanted to experiment with was more of a scoreboard than a grade book. I started calling grade book their scorecard or their scoreboard instead of calling it grade book. I loved this concept that when students are in gaming mode, they think they start with 0 points, and every time they learn something, every time they achieve something, they get points. I love that. Whereas my students tend to think, oh, there's 100 points possible in this class. I start with 100, and every time I don't get a point or two on an assignment, I'm working my way down. And you can hear that then in some of the contentious conversations we have with students over a point or two here or there. And it's because they're in this 100 moving down. So I was trying to flip that mindset to, you start with 0 and you've got to work and learn to build your points. And so to do that, again, I used the grading language. I turned that into scoring language so that they would have a different kind of metaphor in their mind. I tried to integrate some really low stakes options. That's the other thing about scoring in a video game. If you try some skill and you don't get it, you just go back and try it again, and you try it again, and you try it again. And their persistence at trying to level up or to stay on the island or to whatever the metaphor is for being a winner is huge. They have great persistence, great tenacity with this. So I wanted to integrate low stakes types of opportunities. So we use an external tool in Canvas called Quick Check, and it's just an opportunity to do an unlimited number of attempts at a quiz. I have a love-hate relationship myself with Quick Check. I love the low stakes opportunity concept, but this is where literally they would go into an article or a book chapter or whatever. They would Control F to find enough of the language in the question to find just that sentence, and then go back and answer the question. So what they knew without any context at all, and the content became somewhat meaningless to them. Or again, there were episodes where I know from watching my statistics in Canvas that they were taking a quiz over a video without having ever even opened the video. So they were just really randomly guessing. And at first I thought, well, okay, they at least through the quiz have to learn the content, but without that effortful retrieval of really having to think back through and remember something, the learning isn't going to stick. We know that from our learning theory, right? So I like low stakes, didn't love the endless opportunities kinds of issues that Quick Check gave me. I experimented with Lyndon Nilsson's specs grading. Show of hands, how many have experimented with specs grading or heard of it? Linda's book might be worth a read. It's an interesting concept. She has every single assignment is graded as either complete or incomplete. And then you convert those grades, because I still have a grade required at the end of the semester, you kind of bundle those completes or incompletes. So maybe if you get 10 of 15 completes, you get the B in the course. But if you get 11 or 12 completes out of 15, you get an A in the course. You can bundle however you want. I had core requirements in order to meet my learning objectives. So they had to hit a complete on every one of those assignments to even get a C in the course. I felt like then I could hold my head up high to a recruiter and say, yes, this student who got a C in this class, I guarantee has learned at least these baseline skills. I added additional quests, deeper dives into parts of those core requirements for students who wanted to elevate to B's or A's in the course. As you can imagine, students feel a degree of stress when they know that they're going to get an incomplete or a complete, and those are the only two grading options for them on each assignment. So my rubrics or the specification sheets were very detailed. This is just an example. When a team leader led a team meeting, those meetings are recorded and submitted so that I could grade them. But they knew going into it that these were the things they absolutely had to do, or that assignment was going to be considered incomplete. And they were going to have to do what? Well, they have some choices. What they can do is turn in one of their 3 immunity tokens. And again, I'm using Survivor language and imagery here. On Survivor, depending on certain activities you do, you get an immunity token that prevents you from getting kicked off the island in the next challenge. So my students were awarded 3 immunity tokens that they could use to redo assignments when they did get an incomplete. So what were their thoughts about specs grading, etc.? Lovers and haters again. I'm going to start with the haters this time. There were far more haters than lovers for specs grading. Here are some of the things they had to say. I would have preferred a traditional grading system over specs because I would have known what in the hell is going on in this class. There's a quote. So obviously I had some messaging and instructional work to do. It's such a foreign concept to them. It's such a leap to understand this kind of grading that I just would have had to put an immense amount of time into messaging it. Another student said, I would absolutely have preferred a traditional grading structure. It would have given students a bit of wiggle room and would have allowed for points to be deducted if you didn't fulfill all the requirements. Now, this is exactly why I love specs grading, though. So this student's argument against it is actually my argument for using specs grading, is that I don't want you to be able to get an A or an A minus and not fulfill requirements. I need you to meet the learning outcomes. Another student said, I want to know the effort I put in matters. Specs grading encourages people to do just enough to get by. Interesting, right? I would have preferred traditional grading. The immunity tokens and the incomplete put a lot of pressure on me to turn in work that was absolutely perfect. Again, to meet specs, I set up those specs that it's about the equivalent of a B assignment. So it's not perfect work, but they didn't see that difference. And this is the one, there's two reasons I'm no longer using specs grading, by the way. Here's one of the reasons. I think I would have preferred a traditional letter grade because I would often go into assignments thinking I was going to fail, and that made me less enthusiastic to get things done. That was heartbreaking for me. The other reason I'm not using specs grading anymore is do the math on it. Every student has 3 immunity tokens. If you have 350 students and they all get to redo 3 assignments, the grading and the revisions on the grading was outrageous. There were some lovers of the scoreboarding kind of concept. They said, I liked the complete grading because everybody has different styles of doing their work. It lets students be more creative. Another student wrote, the current structure allowed me to know what grade I would get. It allowed me to feel like I had more efficacy than otherwise. I have a student that knows and uses the word efficacy. That makes me just so happy. I think the concept is interesting. It allows a student to get out of the class what they put into it. I love that one. And then the pass-fail style of each assignment is interesting. It's not utilized in any other course I've taken, so I think it's cool. So those were some feedback on the specs grading piece. And then our last concept then is this idea of self-directed learning. So if they wanted to get more than a C in the class, remember they could do a deep dive into content. And I called those quests, which was a problem because I don't know how many quests there are in Survivor. I don't think that's Survivor language again. But so they had these options to choose from, and they had some brief write-ups of each one of those. So let's say you decided to do situational leadership, then I would tell them up front that what you're going to be doing is a case and a reflection essay. But if you're going to do positive leadership and do a deep dive into that, you're going to end up doing a coaching session for your team, and you're going to play the positivity game with some friends and family. So those were some of the quests that they could do. This is what they said they were going to do at the beginning of the semester. I was kind of pleased. I was like, oh, it's a fairly even distribution of what they're going to do. But what they actually ended up choosing to do and submitted looked more like this. So I think by the end of the semester, they all decided self-awareness and study of leader were easier assignments, or assignments that you could do at the last minute, and the others took planning ahead that they hadn't done. So there were there were not any haters for self-directed learning. Students, by and large, all loved self-directed opportunities. A couple of comments from them on this. One student wrote, let me get to that one. Even selecting a quest required self-awareness, and self-awareness about your leadership is one of the goals of the class. So I loved that. And another student said, overall, I think the concept of the class is fun with the tokens and the quests. Again, it really allows a student to get out of the class what they put into it with the quests. So they felt that a little bit, both with the quests and the self-directed learning. So those were some of the things that came out of this. So now, I see there are some questions in the questions and comments in the chat. So I'm hoping you're keeping up with the chat. And if you want to save the chat, you can go to the 3 dots next to your picture and just do a save chat, hopefully, so that you have that captured. But what I'm going to do is put you into some breakout rooms. And in your breakout rooms, you're going to fill out, well, let's see, you're going to fill out a Google form, and we'll all be working on the same Google Doc, so be careful not to type over other people in their groups. But in the Google Doc, what I'm going to have you do is list some, maybe those games that you put in when we talked in the chat room as your icebreaker. When you put in what your favorite game is, so I'm gonna just have you list a game, and then what is one feature of that game, either the imagery or a component of the game itself, that you might be able to apply in some way to the courses that you teach. So I did I Spy, the children's game where you ask them, you know, I see something green, I spy something green, what is it? I spy something square, what is it? So you could play I Spy for anything when you want students to find things in their environment. I'm using it this semester to have them find examples of the 4 emotional intelligence competencies in their everyday life and reply back. So that's what I'm going to have you do in your breakout room. Actually, do you want breakouts or do you want to work on it alone? How many want to go to a breakout room? You have about 5 minutes. Looks like a mixed bag, so I'll throw you in a breakout room. What the heck, we'll have fun. So you can work on this as a team then with your breakout room. Pick 1 or 2 games that you would like and throw in your imagery to that. There will be about 3 of you per room. The rooms are open. I'll call you back in about 5 minutes, and then that way we can share out and look at the list and close up. Your rooms are open. You can scooch on over to your breakouts. Jim, were you waving or, oh, I think Jim was saying goodbye maybe. We're all filtering back in here. Rooms are closing. I think we'll have everybody back in just a second. Oh, those diehards over in team group 4 and 1. They just refuse to leave until they're shoved out. So you have access now to the document. You can go ahead and download it as people are finishing it if you want to. You are editors on this so that you can see everyone's great ideas. Hi, I think we're all back. So thanks for contributing your ideas to the document. Everyone has access to that. So if you want to keep adding ideas or download that document so that you have your own idea. I actually use Google Docs. Sometimes I create a form, and that way students can't see each other's work, and that becomes one of the virtual games or the fire making challenges, is to see if they can get so many answers or the best answers or the answers that are closest to the key, and they're submitting, and then I can see the Excel coming in, so then I can pop into the rooms and say, oh, team 4, team 3's edging you out by 1 idea. If you could come up with 1 more good idea, you could catch them. So even using Google Docs is another form of gaming that you might want to play with. I'm going to sit and kind of surf through the chat to make sure I've answered all of the questions, and I will save that or respond to you individually on those. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to stick around and answer some questions for about 4 minutes until Brandon shuts us out of the room. But I hope you got something useful that you can use, and happy gaming on the lowest level possible. Take care, everybody.
Hi, Brenda. My name is Bill. I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, Bill, what's your question?
So I was trying to figure out how to navigate FERPA with the leaderboard, because I think leaderboard in some instances would be pretty effective.
I think you can, yeah. I did scoreboard, not leaderboard, so they knew their own scores. They didn't know other people's scores. That's a really great question. Do you think if we did bars rather than points, we would still be in violation? Probably.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. It's not really revealing the scores. I was wondering if they had like pseudonyms and it was up to them.
If they're using like nicknames or something
pseudonyms.
like that.
There's the answer. That's a great answer. Yeah, Bill, perfect.
Well, didn't you get their consent? That might work.
Yeah.
Consent to share.
Pseudonyms or consent. Yeah. Great. Thank you for asking and answering. I love it. Other questions or thoughts while we're together?
I'm reminded of, on the same idea, but of a system of, called, Classroom Dojo. So my background is in K through 12 teaching before coming into the PhD here. But where students are given the ability to sort of create full avatars that are completely different from themselves, or they can be the same as themselves. And that might be another system as well, is to have them, especially like there are changes coming to Canvas specifically soon where students are going to be able to make by course changes to some of that stuff. And if that can be integrated, they can set themselves up to have a completely different name and stuff for a course.
Interesting. Yeah, fun.
One of the things that we talked about in our group, and I don't know how this idea just popped up, but in a lot of like the little games that you get like on your iPhone or through Samsung or whatever.
Think Angry Birds and that kind of thing.
you earn like tokens that you can like spend to get like different abilities or whatever, but you can also buy them. And I remember there was a game that I played one time. It says you can get like 10 tokens for $1.99, or you can watch this video and get 5. And so I was thinking along the lines of watch the video and you get tokens, rather than just giving people, an immunity or a pass or a token or something. Is, hey, if you need extra time, you can earn a delayed time bonus. But you have to watch this little video and write a paragraph about it, and then you'll get your extra day or 2.
Yeah, yeah.
Earning it through micro, I guess, they use
I love that.
a micro learning thing. So
right. Learn to earn kind of thing. Hey, we're getting the messages that we're going to get booted out. They need the room for another session. So if you guys want, move on over to Jim's to finish your conversation. And again, the document is there for you so that you've got, oh my gosh, 21 plus great ideas kind of floating out there. Take care, everybody. It was great to work with you. Enjoy the conference.